ready to rock? All right. Hello. To start this off, I want to ask you if any of you are familiar with the Japanese term Nana Karobi Yaoki. No? No one? All right, I'll give you a hint. Any ideas? Say that again? Close. Nana Karobi Yaoki means fall down 7 times, get up 8. And it's one of the martial arts principles I hope you'll take with you after my talk tonight. Hello, good evening. My name is Abraham Judice. I'm an information security engineer with 7 years of professional experience, and I am a karateka, a person who studies karate under the Demuraha Shitoru Karate Do organization for the past 20 years. My goal today is to describe how you can build a resilient cybersecurity career using the principles of martial arts that I've learned. First and foremost, I'd like to give a shout out to my wonderful wife for coming out here and supporting me tonight. All right, to break down my presentation a little bit more, I want to talk about what Budo means. We break this down to 2 parts for the Japanese term. One, Bu meaning martial, and Do meaning way. So to reframe my title, it means the Cyber Defender's Martial Way. All right, so back to falling down. My ability to fall well has been critical for my development in martial arts, right? Because by falling correctly, I maintain my ability to get back up. Similarly, in cybersecurity, my ability to fail correctly has been important for my continued growth and success, right? The concern here is not that we make mistakes. Rather, we should embrace that failure, embrace that pain. The concern is that we create issues, right? That we injure our organizations or our information systems. So as cybersecurity professionals and as martial artists, it's important for us to embrace pain, but avoid injury. To summarize this a little better in cybersecurity, it basically means don't test in prod, right? Test in your dev or test environment first. If you don't have a dev or test environment, make sure you get it in writing that you're supposed to deploy to prod directly. All right, so as I said, today my goal is to develop a philosophy for individuals to create a resilient cybersecurity career. I will use the lens of a blue teamer for specific examples because that's my background, but ultimately I hope that this is a philosophy that any sort of professional in InfoSec can use to better their career. Our industry is very dynamic, so must be our approach. To do that, I'm going to start with a framework because that's cybersecurity. From there, I'll take that framework and boil it down to the specific skills and behaviors we need at the first 3 levels of a practitioner, not only to succeed there, but to move on to the next level. Finally, I'll conclude with a discussion on the elite level, the role of a sensei, and we will end with a beginning. Last administrative note, I will be referencing the 1984 cinematic masterpiece, The Karate Kid, so you've been warned. All right, so let's set the stage. In professionalism, in any industry, you are required to develop a skill set of both hard and soft skills. I like to break those down into 3 distinct categories. We start with technical. Right, this defines what we do at the most finite level. For blue teamers, this is us putting our hands on the keyboard and making changes in our system, gathering information, anything like that. The next step up, kind of the blend between hard and soft skills, is our tactical skills. These inform us how we implement these techniques, right? We can learn how to boot a computer off our network, but if we're not doing it correctly, if we're booting the wrong computer off our network, we're also going to have a bad time. And finally, and sometimes the least fun part, is the social skills, those soft skills. These inform us the why in what we do. If we can't clearly communicate to leadership the benefits and costs of our work, they're not going to be able to support it. They can't commit that time and capital of the organization in order to make the improvements. Not necessarily because our work isn't useful, but because we haven't made it clear to them. We've had to make that part of their job easy. And so because of this, those social skills tend to be the most important at the highest level, right? When you start working with and within leadership. And yet, for us technicians, it is still very important to develop these social skills. As a blue teamer, oftentimes the beginning of my relationship with an end user is after they've, something's broken on their end, perhaps they've been target of malicious activity, or I'm trying to change their behavior. In each of those three, it's a discomforting situation. So if you don't approach that with with understanding where they're coming from, being conscientious of how they're dealing with things, your ability to collaborate with those individuals will deteriorate fairly rapidly. And so when we continue throughout this journey, I will reference basically all three of these skills, but we can think of these technical skills as our keyhone, or our basics, our fundamentals. Again, this is us putting our hands on the keyboard. And now at this point, I'd like to impart the first stanza of our Dojo Kun. In Genbokai, Dojo Kun is really kind of our dojo code of conduct, and that is to be courteous in your manners. I encourage you to view your professional interactions as negotiations, right? Calibrate your behavior for optimal impact. I'd be surprised to hear that somebody in their professional career hasn't been belittled, hasn't been bullied, hasn't been strong-armed. It's not a fun part, and more than likely, it's going to happen to you. I'm genuinely sorry about that. I encourage you to stand up for yourself, but don't allow the poor quality of another person's conduct to deteriorate the quality of yours, right? Maintain discipline, keep that approach that has brought you success to that point. All right, enough yammering about yet another framework. Let's actually get into the meat of it. So in this path of practitioner, we're gonna discuss, again, technical, tactical, and social skills you need to succeed and surpass each level. For this first part, we're gonna talk about our technical keyhone, the blocks, strikes, and stances of being a cybersecurity professional. As Mr. Miyagi says, wax on, wax off, paint the fence, sand the floor. All right, so for us, blue teamers specifically, security monitoring response, this is where the technical rubber meets the road. Our blocks, I view these as the kind of alerts and monitoring that we do on a daily basis, making sure you're aware of when your users receive a phishing email. And at the same, and these techniques will differ fairly widely when you go from organization to organization, but the intent is always the same. Now, strikes, that tends to be the more fun part of cybersecurity. That's when you actually go on the attack, right? So when somebody reports a phish, when you confirm that it's legitimate, what are you going to do? Sure, we're gonna block the sender. We should be blocking any malicious sites that are linked. We should delete the emails, and potentially we should be resetting user credentials to fully eradicate that threat. And finally, we move on to stances. These are the somewhat boring, although very important parts of our career, communication and documentation. And if you will, I'm gonna hop on my soapbox for a little bit and say emails are very important. When it talks about deploying to prod, if you get it in writing, an email is a great way to get it in writing. Not only is this the intersection between communication and documentation, but you and your organization can and will be held accountable for what's in emails. All right, now before I move on, I do want to talk a little bit about style. Like martial arts, cybersecurity, there's a broad range of styles, right? You can take the time to learn Bash, PowerShell, and Python, and I highly recommend that to anybody getting started. But depending on your current role or your future goals, learning other languages like Go, Rust, or CSS might be more beneficial to you. So again, understand your individuality, and that will inform your techniques. All right. You can be as technically capable as possible, but without tactical competency, you'll fail to do the right thing at the right time. This tactical awareness informs our technical application. In karate, that's footwork, right? I can throw punches up here, but I'm not even close to you guys. I've got to move in. I've got to position myself for maximum effectiveness. At the same time, for us blue teamers, that's IT operations. We need to understand how our IT personnel get their job done so we can align with those processes and work with those teams. Hopefully you're never going to patch vulnerabilities. That should be the role of your IT and infrastructure teams. If you don't understand their context, you don't understand how they get their work done, it's going to be really hard for you to take something like a vulnerability scan and turn it into a specific remediation. Vulnerability scanning in and of itself, pretty straightforward, right? You stand up a scanner, you point it at an endpoint, and then you pull information about the files and configurations there. Taking that information, communicating it to your IT teams, coming up with a testing plan, and understanding the full impact that remediation will have is not a straightforward process. Okay, so now we've got our catalog of hard skills, right? We've got our blocks, our strikes, our stances, and our footwork. And yet, we're still missing a layer. And so this is where, once again, those soft skills come into play. And we start to work on our social fundamentals. I like to break these into kind of two pretty broad areas of skill. The first being awareness. And so this is both technical and strategic, right? That's why I recommend learning things like the OSI model that gives you a purview into our technical people, right? How does our network actually manage our environment? How do our infrastructure people get their job done? Having this sort of contextual knowledge will allow you to work better with those individuals. And here, I would highly recommend for anyone getting started in cybersecurity to take the free FR Secure CISSP Mentor Program, even if you're not taking the certification. It provides a great, broad range of information that'll give you the perspective needed to start deciding where you want your career to go. Yet, for us practitioners, just learning these kind of basic models isn't enough. We need to start creating our own mental model, understand how our environment fits within the OSI model or fits within the NIST cybersecurity framework. Okay, so that's awareness. Now we'll talk about etiquette, right? These are the social norms or expectations that people within your organization, or contractors, vendors, even your customers have. Start by learning those expectations and then go from there. If you find yourself struggling in social situations, that's okay. It's all right. Take the L and move on. Own up to it. Sometimes you'll be the reason, right? You need to work on your behavior. Other times it's your counterpart. That's okay too. Learn to identify where the issues lie. If it's on your part, you can learn to upgrade your skill. If it's on your counterpart's behalf, you can either A, use that to help them up their game, right? If it's a teammate, coach them up a little bit. And if it's somebody in an adversarial position, use that to your advantage later. Okay, so at this point, we've basically filled up our skills catalog, both from hard to soft skills. But to use this framework to your benefit requires dedication. And so it's here that I'd like to impart another principle. And as we say in martial arts, train every day. We need to get thousands of repetitions in order to turn these basic skills into instinctual behavior. This deeply established learning provides a mental agility which allows for technical creativity, especially in emergency situations. And for us blue teamers, that's incident response. Things we learn at this beginner level should and will stick with us throughout our journey. They are the foundation for all of our skill. As you continue to refine the skills, you continue to work on yourself, you'll eventually just move into the intermediate level. And at this point, it's not just enough to learn the book definitions or the standard forms. It's now your responsibility to apply what you've learned. Take time to apply the knowledge, challenge yourself. This is an opportunity for failure, which is an opportunity for learning. For us cybersecurity professionals, I'm going to go over three distinct ways to do this, or three distinct areas that we should focus on. The first is the most technical, and that's individual drills. In karate, we have both kata and advanced kihon. These are set combinations that we do in line. Not only does this teach endurance and strength, but it teaches that instinctual response. For us cybersecurity professionals, these are things like guided tutorials, right? Take a Try-Hack Me room. Join a CTF if it's around. Well, actually, CTFs are next. Don't do that yet. Or find a technology that piques your interest and move through some sort of YouTube series to learn it. A specific recommendation I have for cybersecurity professionals at the intermediate level is learn one of the 3 major cloud providers. Not only does this give you that kind of contextual referential knowledge to perform better within your job, but it makes you a lot more attractive to other employers. So it's a win-win. This sort of individualized drilling does sharpen our tools, right? It gives us that rapid response that we need in in an incident response scenario. If somebody is actively attacking our organizations and we have to ask ourselves, what do we do? Instead of knowing what to do, that's time lost. And from a leadership perspective, that's a financial loss. These are the things we need to avoid most. And yet, just this individualized drilling doesn't fully prepare us for live action. To prepare for live action, you need some live action. And so that's where partner drills come into play. For karate, that's our kumite or our sparring. We start with very specific and simple attack and response drills. As you grow in capability, we increase the complexity of that until you get to free sparring or ju kumite. And this is where you're actively dealing with a creative attack and coming up with creative response. In cybersecurity, these are the friendly competitions, right? Our CTFs, utilizing OWASP WebGoat, actually trying to hack something that somebody told you it's okay to hack. Inside our organizations, these are our tabletops. This is when we actually practice what are we going to do when worst comes to worst. Now, we can take these technical and tactical skills we practice and to try to apply them under pressure. But just doing that isn't enough. Afterwards, we got to do a look back, understand, what did we do well, keep doing that, and then where did we fail, and improve on that going forward. The goal here is not to win. Winning's nice, we love a dub, but the goal here is to learn. So win or lose, learn something. What'd you do well? What could you do better? And now we get to the fun part, the social skills. All right. So as you prepare for this next level, the advanced level, you have to accept that you'll be in a leadership role. In order to prepare yourself fully for that, there are actually a few behaviors that I would recommend for these soft skills. First and foremost, obtain timely feedback. Maybe you just went through an incident response procedure, right? You just responded to phishing, what have you. Perhaps you just led a meeting. Immediately after, reach out to one of your peers, reach out to one of your leaders and ask them, well, what did you do well? That's good to know. More importantly, what could you do better? Use this as an iterative process for upping your game. Next is asking thoughtful questions. It's pretty easy to ask a question, but the thoughtfulness is where the work comes in. Prepare yourself. You can find somebody who is very technically savvy and ask them an incredibly high-level question. But if you don't have the baseline knowledge, the referential knowledge to really understand what they're saying, you're basically wasting both of your times. So do a little pre-work and come with thoughtful questions. Now, most of this I thought of really went with working with humans, right? Working with the individual. But these days we know that asking thoughtful questions also means working with AI. All right, I said it, it's a tech talk now. On a serious note, if you're working with an LLM, crafting a smart and meaningful query is important. If you ask a bad question to an LLM, you're gonna get a bad response. Sometimes you'll ask a good question to an LLM and you'll still get a bad response, but that happens a lot less than asking just bad questions to begin with. And finally, I'd recommend you to be eager to learn, especially when it's boring. For us cybersecurity folk, when we see somebody sharing their screen, keep your eyes peeled. Better yet, if you have a technically capable person troubleshooting an issue, it can be dry, It can take a long time, but the quality knowledge kernels you'll get throughout that time are beneficial now and then. Okay, so now we're at the intermediate level. We've got our skills catalog, and more importantly, we've started to take an intentional approach to our progression, right? We are making decisions on how we want to grow. At this level, I recommend that you hold yourself accountable to the 8th Genbukai principle of life, and that is always make your strongest effort. A lot of times in life, we don't have much control. One of the few things we almost always have control is our effort. Apply yourself fully to the situation at hand. When you're on those dry calls, make sure you're keeping yourself disciplined. Pay attention and gather knowledge as you go. I encourage you to keep your eye on the ball while challenge yourself to develop new techniques and tactics. At the end of the day, if you're questioning whether it's worth your time and effort, remember what the great Larry and Teicher said, and that is, he's just going to send it. One more time. Beautiful. All right. So at this point, as we're developing our skills, we're maintaining them and improving them. We've tested those skills, and then we've refined our approach to development to continue to improve and grow. And now we're reaching the advanced level. In cybersecurity, when you reach this advanced level, sometimes you will be promoted to senior, sometimes you'll just have the responsibilities of one. Either way, here's where you can consider yourself a black belt. Not only have you proven your skill, but now you've taken personal responsibility for your development. And here, our efforts need to take a threefold approach. We need to maintain, broaden, and deepen our skill. Try new things, right? Try new combinations. Continue to practice your fundamentals, and then learn about the wide world of cybersecurity. Like before, our responsibilities are for technical and tactical proficiency, but now we have direct leadership responsibilities. So I want to talk through 3 core things at this level. The first is the most technical and tactical, that's performance. And then we'll move to peer mentorship, and finally leadership. So for performance, this as Blue Team individual contributors is the most important. When incident response happens, how do you perform? Performing well will instill trust in your peers, your team, and your organization as a whole. So take time to refine your approach. When the pressure is on, that's when performance matters the most. To refine your approach, continue to involve yourself in competitions like CTFs and tabletops. But again, challenge yourself. Be willing to fail at things so you understand where your skills gap are. Additionally, try new technology out. This conference provides a lot of opportunities to learn different technologies with really knowledgeable people. So push yourself out of your comfort zone. And finally, start taking a more hands-on approach to not just your development, but your projects. Build your own home lab. This can be in the cloud or on-prem, but build something that you're okay breaking. What you'll find is that combining these technical, tactical, and social skills allow us for high level of performance, much like landing a crane kick to the head. What you'll see is that Daniel San he's employing all 3 of these skill categories. Technically, that's a beautiful kick. Tactically, he hurt his knee earlier in the tournament. He can't use both legs. And socially, he understands that Johnny and the rest of the Cobra Kai are incredibly aggressive. He knows they'll move in and try to strike first. He prepares for that and then answers when the time has come. Next, this may be my favorite part, and that is peer mentorship. As you rise to the advanced level, you own a responsibility to your team. Own up to this duty. Proactively provide feedback for your teammates, but lead from the front. If you're asking for feedback and then ignoring that feedback, your peers, your juniors, they'll notice that. So be open to receiving constructive criticism and hold yourself accountable to work towards that. And finally, by giving this mentorship, you need to take time to teach something, right? A lot of times that can seem like a very selfless endeavor, but I believe that teaching is a two-way learning street. Teaching something is the only way to truly learn something, so take the time. This is the role of a senpai. You are not leading the dojo from the front, but you're in class with the rest of your karateka, you're working hard, and you're showing what it means to develop yourself, to hold yourself accountable to this framework. All right, and finally at the advanced level is the sensei responsibilities. Now, we're still not a sensei, right? We're still just an advanced practitioner. But if our goal is ever to rise to that leadership level, we need to start cultivating that skill now. You need to start thinking not just how you can do your job right or how an individual on your team can do better, but start thinking about how your organization as a whole can improve their operations. Take the opportunity to lead your projects, not just as a developer, not just as a technician, but as a manager as well. Understand how you can work with leadership to get the job done. I would recommend you start with small projects if you have the opportunity to, because that'll allow you to understand both the structural and cultural requirements for success. Additionally, it allows you to build relationships of trust with people in your team or on cross-functional teams. As you continue to do these projects, your team or a circle of trust will grow, and so can the scope of your projects. Organizational change requires collaboration. Collaboration requires trust. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. All right, so now we're about at the sensei level. At this point, we have developed and continue to refine our foundations of knowledge and skill, a repertoire of capability. We've proven to ourselves and the community that we can execute when it matters most, and we've taken responsibility as a leader. At this point, not only are we ready for the next level, but we're ready to execute from day one. For any profession, rising to that senior level in your career is a significant achievement, but one that comes with a heightened level of responsibility and expectation. You'll know you've reached this level when you have developed both technical and tactical proficiency. But it becomes frustrating. Because we've learned so much, there's less to learn going forward. So you'll feel your growth stagnating. And it's at this point you need to remember the 10th and final principle of the Genbukai. And that is to never forget your beginner spirit. Right? Remember how exciting it was when you just got into the cybersecurity field, how hungry you were to learn more knowledge. Continuous improvement requires humility. So be tenacious and be humble. All right, that's bringing us to the end of our time here today. At this point, right, we've got the whole skills catalog, we've refined it, we've improved it, and now we're working on improving the capabilities of the people around us. Yet to be elite, you must maintain your focus and strive for excellence. And in this effort, strive not to just improve your skills, but the skills of the individuals around you. Like martial arts, in cybersecurity, there are a bunch of standard forms and frameworks. But the elite practitioners in our field are creative. They take those frameworks, they learn them, they augment them, and then sometimes they break them for their own benefit. Take your knowledge and create your own path with it. As a sensei, as a leader of your organization, there are two key things I would like to impart on you. One is to continue learning from all your peers, from your senpai, those in superior positions to you, and your kohai, those in junior positions to you. I also believe that those with the capability to help and support the community bear the responsibility to do so. So invest your time in that community. To strive for this level of excellence, I encourage you all to find your niche. Understand your strengths and weaknesses to best prepare for opportunities and threats. It's here that I would like to end with the beginning. Genbukai principle of life number 1 is to know yourself. Now, the simplicity and finality of the statement is juxtaposed to the ever-changing nature of the individual. To know yourself is to expect change, to embrace change, be a part of the reason that you grow. The insight you have now will help you find your path, but it'll also help you re-find your path if you lose your way. Work hard, take care of your people, and respect your sensei. Thank you very much.